Tuesday, 23rd December 1924. The Aster Theatre, New Farm, is to be officially opened tonight. This theatre, which stands on the site of the old Merthyr Theatre at the corner of Brunswick and Barker Streets, is thoroughly up to date in architecture, seating and facilities, for showing the pictures to the greatest possible advantage. The programme promised for tonight is a good one, and the proceeds will go to benefit the Queensland Ambulance Transport Association. Monday, 17th February 1930. The desire for progress with the times, the discernment and keen business ability of the directors, the chief of whom are Mr. C.E. Munro and Mr. R.F. Stevens, were evident at the opening of the Talkies at the Aster Theatre, New Farm, last Friday night. The plant installed is the popular Western Electric and is the latest type. The work was carried out in splendid time. A squad of expert electricians and workmen working day and night. The wiring of the theatre was carried out under the supervision of Mr. Charles Ives. The large audiences at the Aster on Friday and Saturday nights were delighted with the show presented, the sound production being faultless. The opening program was the Fox Movietone special, The Black Watch, supported by an array of talkie featurettes. Some of the attractions to be presented shortly at the Aster are Behind That Curtain, Words and Music. Next Wednesday night will mark the opening of the serial Tarzan.
The Aster Theatre continued to screen films into the late 1960s until it was acquired by the Melbourne-based Village chain of theatres. Village hired the Melbourne architects Ron G. Monsborough and Associates to design a twin cinema within the existing space of the Aster Theatre. It followed in the footsteps of other twin cinemas constructed within the shells of existing theatres in Melbourne in the 1960s. The Village Twin opened on Boxing Day 1970. It was a new concept for Queensland, a cinema with more than one auditorium. Cinema 1, the Blue Room, was described in a 1970 newspaper report as a beautiful sea blue auditorium with a roof which makes one think of white coral. Others felt the ceiling resembled something of a lunar landscape. The foyer itself was stepped where the entry into the cinema was staged in order to manipulate the experience of arrival. In 2002, when the Village Twin closed for development, work stopped on the site when workers discovered severe structural problems in the roof of Cinema 1, the Blue Room. After much deliberation, the Queensland Heritage Council approved the application to demolish the rear of the building.
The original Village Twin, as people remember, closed in June 2002, so it was derelict and boarded up for a period of 13 years before we stepped foot in the door, and it was quite a sight. It was derelict. The construction site, the previous owner had started construction and stopped, so there was dirt on the ground. There was no longer concrete. The Purple Room, the famous Purple Room, was boarded up for 10 years. We walked in and it was just a mess. The carpet was eaten by moths. It was very derelict. It was an iconic cinema. And we felt that connection when we walked in. There were elements of the cinema that were still intact, the chandelier, but the ceiling in the Purple Room. And we saw that, and we saw the potential of what it could possibly become, and that's what really drove us.
We wanted to remain faithful with the original design. Even though the Blue Room was demolished, it had a beautiful ceiling, moonscape, but it was too expensive to recreate that. So as a result, we designed 4 new cinemas, which would keep us up to date with what the public were after in regards to the latest technology, wider seats, better picture sound quality, and we also wanted to encompass a nice restaurant and coffee and gelato as well, and with a licensed bar.
Well, this place, if you look hard enough, is littered with the rich history that the cinema has. The original timber trusses from the Aster Theatre in the 1930s. On one of them, Mr. B. Spencer wrote his name on it, 1937. So there's elements such as that. If you look hard enough, you can see the Blue Room doors that were lying here in the foyer. We've reused them as tables in the lower foyer. So we've tried to reuse as many elements as we can. It was important to keep the characteristics of the old Village Twin, to have that Village Twin feel as it was. But at the same time, it needed to be economically viable to run as a cinema complex in the modern age. So whilst we still have the original carpets and the Purple Room, we've now extended to 6 screens, so 2 gold rooms, which is a premium class cinema, and the remaining 4 cinemas. So it's an interesting combination of the old and the new.
The 1970s souvenir opening program of the Village Twin stated that the cinemas would still be modern and fresh in 1984. And now, some 44 years later, those original designs, concept and fabrics are the instrumental heart of the rebirth of new Farm 6 cinemas.